Atomfall is a difficult game to discuss because, well, it depends on what your expectations are when you go to play it. Much of the promotion cycle called this game British Fallout, and if that's what you expect, you'll definitely be disappointed. Mostly because it doesn't play like Fallout at all. I saw some people also say that it's more like a British Metro, and while I would say that's a closer analysis, Atomfall is still very different. Another comparison I've seen is Stalker, but it's nothing like Stalker either. It takes a lot of interesting elements from those games and combines them into a very interesting, albeit not amazing package. It's a uniquely unoriginal game. Atomfall was made by Rebellion, the same people that made the Sniper Elite games, and they somehow managed to make a unique game out of entirely unoriginal parts. At times, I almost can't tell if Atomfall is uninspired, so they had to copy those elements, or if they really loved those elements and wanted to include them out of that love. Now, I'm sure no one gives a fuck about this game at this point, and they probably won't give a fuck about this review, but I still wanted to make it. I love post-apocalyptic games, and that's immediately what drew my attention to Atomfall. After playing it for a while and eventually beating it, I realized it would be a very difficult game to talk about, because there's things it does really well, and there's a lot of areas where it falls completely short. I didn't hate it, in fact I enjoyed my time with it, but at the same time I can't look past some of its more severe flaws. Despite those flaws, I could almost see this game becoming a cult classic. What's going on, guys? It's your boy Drinker here, and today we are reviewing Atomfall. Really quickly though, guys, before the video begins, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, all that good shit. It really does help the channel grow a ton. Consider becoming a channel member or checking out my locals if you wish to support me further. I've been streaming more as well, so be sure to check out the streams on the channel. Now, this is your one and only warning, there will be spoilers ahead, so click off of the video if you don't want to see those. But let's go ahead and jump right back into the video. So Atomfall takes place in an alternate timeline in the early 60s, about 5 years after the 1957 wind-scale disaster in northern England, which was a real disaster. Unlike real life, a meteor hit the plant, which is sort of what caused everything to turn to shit. Yeah, it wasn't thoroughly explained very well. But now the entire area is a containment zone where no one enters or leaves, and everyone inside is basically left to fend for themselves. I'll discuss the story more later, but basically your entire goal is to escape the quarantine zone. I do want to say for early 1960s Britain, the game is very diverse, with a lot of girl bosses. The demographics are probably more representative of modern day Britain and not 1960s Britain. Honestly, there's probably less violence in Atomfall than in modern day London, but that's what happens when you mass import migrants from the third world. While this game is less overt than many other games, it's still very noticeable. The gameplay in Atomfall is very interesting. Atomfall is definitely more of a action, survival, exploration game than an RPG. It has a very simple and restricted inventory with a low amount of inventory space. The gunplay is fairly standard and generic. It feels fine, but nothing in particular stands out to me. The guns definitely feel satisfying to use, so I'm not really complaining. The melee weapons feel fine, but you basically just spam attacks because you can't really dodge or block anything. You can actually get stun locked by a melee enemy, and because the system is so limited, you can't really do anything about it, which can be annoying as hell. The game has a very basic looting system. Enemies will typically have very limited supplies. You can sometimes go long stretches without seeing enemies, and because of some of the survival mechanics, you aren't really encouraged to engage them, especially since half the time they don't give you any loot at all. If there's no benefit to fighting them, and I can sneak past them, well, that's what I'm gonna do. Oh, there's also no hotkey for healing, so that's annoying if you're in the middle of a fight, because opening the inventory does not pause the game. The AI is terrible. I mean, awful. Much of the time they run at you in a straight line and you can just funnel them into one area, or if a melee guy attacks you, you can just back up and he'll probably miss. Sometimes though, they are smarter and take cover. I'm not sure if it's just broken or what's causing them to be so inconsistent. They do oftentimes give you a chance to leave them alone and go another direction though. The enemies spot you basically immediately, and the meter doesn't signify stealth, it signifies whether or not they're going to attack you. Atomfall has the worst stealth system ever because it basically doesn't have any stealth at all. Oh, other than the 6-inch tall grass that makes you invisible for some reason. Fighting the robots can be terrifying because they can kill you so fast, but if you play patient and shoot their obvious weak points, you can kill them. Besides the robots though, most of the enemies feel like fodder. There's no boss fights or anything like that in the game. You can craft different items and you find recipes to unlock different things to craft. It's a very basic crafting system overall, but it fits the feel of the game well. But some of the items in the game do feel pointless. Of course, crafting heals makes sense, but I'm not crafting something that makes my melee damage a little stronger when I'm mostly not using melee at all. The game has a skill tree, but it feels super pointless and honestly would have probably been better off being cut from the game entirely. You don't need to upgrade any skills in the game. There's not really any character customization at all. Your character is basically a blank slate and remains that way for the entirety of the game. That's fine. You're also a silent protagonist. I would rather there be no customization than have a pointless customization system. The overall keys to Atomfall are surviving, scavenging, and definitely exploring. I'll say this again when I discuss the story, but the main theme is exploration. The game does not hold your hand and encourages you to explore its world. It does a really good job at keeping you immersed. Even though the game struggles in a lot of ways, it does nail the exploration. The map itself is not large, but it's big enough that you feel like you can get lost in exploration, and there's no fast travel, so you do have to walk from place to place. There's also no map markers. Instead, you have to find rumors, basically just notes with information about where the next objective is. It didn't really add anything to the game to not have objective markers, but I guess it's better than Ubisoft games babying you to every objective, so there's some give and take. You actually have to pay attention and read the rumors or listen to the NPCs to know where the next objective is. This can definitely help keep you engaged in the game at the very least. Atomfall is not graphically impressive, but it does have a pretty solid art style, and the graphics are good enough that it doesn't take away from that style. Just don't expect to be blown away from some hyper photorealistic graphics. In fact, graphically you could probably argue that the game looks last gen or even older, but I'm not obsessed with graphics personally. I prefer style to graphical fidelity, and this game definitely has some style. Overall, I found the aesthetics of the game very pleasing and I enjoyed wandering around the world. It's always a bonus when a game looks so nice that you can just walk around the world and have fun. I do find it funny that the ferals are obviously heavily inspired by feral ghouls in Fallout, or even ripped off directly. The models look very copyright issue adjacent. The opening of Atomfall is actually pretty sick. The cinematic of the wind scale plant and then being awoken in a bunker by a scientist in a gas mask and some sort of hazmat suit while he's trying not to bleed out is definitely a good way to get you invested early.
Is anybody there? I need help. Who are you? What are you doing in here? I thought this place was secure. Where's Dr. Powell? You don't know. Lying here in a sealed bunker inside the quarantine zone, and you don't know.
Soon you leave the bunker and you're met with a phone booth and a mysterious voice telling you that Oberon must die.
Oberon must die. Oberon must die.
The phone booth and voice appears throughout the game, cryptically guiding you as you go along. Like I said earlier in the video, your main objective is to escape the wind-scale containment zone by any means necessary. There are multiple factions in the game, and to be honest, they have very minimal backstory and not much reason to care about them. You have the Protocol, which are just government-backed authoritarians that operate out of Wyndham. You have the Bard, the British Atomic Research Division, who managed the Windscale nuclear site. Then there's the Bandits. They're the clown-looking outlaws you see roaming the zone. There's also druids and cultists, but they're basically irrelevant most of the time. None of the factions seem to have much depth outside of Protocol and Bard. They are the clear main players of the quarantine zone. The world building and why you should care about certain characters and factions definitely leaves a lot to be desired. I'm gonna be honest, I did not find a single NPC in the game compelling or interesting. They're not awful, but I will never think about one of them again. They made virtually no lasting impressions. They really just lack personality. The only real exception is the guitar-playing man that you meet right after leaving the first bunker. One thing that the game does well is that when you're doing things throughout the game, the NPCs will react to it in conversation. If you meet them later, they'll have heard of your exploits throughout the game world. Again, that part of the game is done very well. The voice acting for them is actually pretty solid as well. Much of the game revolves around getting atomic batteries to open the underground tech facility called the Interchange and getting access to Oberon. I think the Interchange was supposed to be scary, but I didn't really think the horrors were, horrifying. The Interchange is actually a pretty cool location, and as you unlock more of it, it is certainly really interesting to explore, but again, not scary in the slightest. Now getting back to the atomic batteries, there's these batteries all over the game world, and basically every faction has at least one. The game does not care how you obtain them. You have to collect 5 of them, really 4 because at the Interchange there's one sitting there waiting for you to put it in. The singular main goal of collecting the atomic batteries being the driving force for your gameplay is actually pretty decent core game design. You can definitely tell they wanted to go for a sense of freedom and exploration. Despite not being a long game, only taking about 16 to 20 hours to beat, it is definitely not linear. You have to go back and forth to different parts of the world to complete objectives, and typically there's multiple places you can choose from to complete that objective. There's also multiple endings depending on which faction you side with. I completed the Telephone Man story because, I don't know, we just kind of vibed like that. The ending of the game is not really very satisfying in my opinion. You do everything and get access to Oberon to find out that it's a space rock infecting things with spores. Earlier when I said Windscale was hit by a meteor, that's what's causing everything in this game world to turn to shit. The spores from the space rock. And then you basically destroy it or take samples of it, again depending on which faction you're helping, and then you leave the quarantine zone and roll credits. Again, the entire point was to be able to leave the quarantine zone. The story is definitely a little more subtle and not overstated or overexplained. It's an intriguing premise, but I don't really feel like the payoff was worth it. I think that they were probably going more for a journey over the destination effect, but an uninteresting ending can make a lot of your effort feel wasted. Overall, the story's just okay and doesn't really have any interesting twists and turns, but it's not so bad that you'll hate it. It just falls flat in a lot of ways because some of the ideas and premises are actually intriguing, but nothing is done with them. They're not fleshed out at all, and that's a consistent theme with this game. Much of it feels half-baked, and the story is definitely no exception. Now this is a rare occurrence, but I actually had no issues with running the game at all. Day one, the game pretty much ran smooth as butter with only the occasional frame dip. Actually, the game ran great. I'm kind of underselling how well it ran. And in today's world, that's a very rare occurrence, so that was a huge dub. As I said earlier, the graphics aren't crazy impressive, but they aren't intensive either, and the game is definitely pretty enough. I would rather have it run good over potentially looking 2% better, so good job there. Atomfall is an extremely difficult game to evaluate. For a company that's never made a game like this, again, these are the guys that made the Sniper Elite games, this is a pretty solid first entry into a completely new genre. I wouldn't say this game is great, but it's better than a lot of the slop out right now. I'd rather play this than Avowed, Dragon Age the Veilguard, Doom the Dark Ages, or George Floyd Samurai. This is a weird game to review because I could see a lot of people just thinking it's okay, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a small subset of gamers that absolutely love it to death. I also wouldn't be surprised if some people just think it's awful. Like I said in the intro, I think a big factor in how much you enjoy this game will come down to your expectations of what the game is. If you come into it with a blank slate and an open mind, you'll probably at least somewhat enjoy it. Honestly, as a Games Pass game, it's not a bad game to try if you like some of the elements the game uses. I certainly wouldn't pay more than like $30 for it on another platform though. And now that I've beaten it, I'll probably never play it again, but I don't regret the time that I spent playing it either. By the time you get near the end of the game, you're probably ready for it to be over with. If the game was any longer, it definitely would have overstayed its welcome without the addition of a more complex story, systems, and mechanics. But it was sort of the perfect length for what it was trying to do. Anyways guys, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, all that good shit. As I said before, it really does help the channel grow a ton. Consider becoming a channel member or checking out my locals if you wish to support me further. But as always guys, this has been your boy Drinker, and I'm out of here. Peace.